Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Douglas Kellner, co-chair of the State Board, and I'll call the meeting to order. Ask the other commissioners to introduce themselves.
I'm Jim Walsh, and I will speak on behalf of my absent brother here. Greg Peterson has had some recent surgery, so he's not with us at the moment.
Commissioner Aquila.
Evelyn Aquila.
All right.
What are you doing? I'm here.
All right. We all join in wishing Commissioner Peterson the best.
Sorry.
We'll go around the room, introduce the board staff.
Todd Valentine,
Kimberly Galvin.
Paul Collins,
Joe Burns,
Anna Savitro.
Patrick Campion,
George Stanton,
John Conklin,
Liz Hogan.
Bob Bren,
Bob Warren, election operations.
Ingrid Giordano, Seidel.
Rob Zeglin on NYSTEC.
Greg Jones, from the Commission on Quality of Care and Advocacy for Persons with Disabilities.
Amy Allo, League of Women Voters of New York State.
All right. And
Evelyn Aquila.
so welcome to everyone, and we start with the meeting of the Board of Canvassers for the state of New York to certify the results of the special elections. And the commissioners have just signed the certificate of election for, now let me make sure we get this right. For the 3rd Assembly District, L. Dean Murray, 15th Assembly District, Michael Montesano, 24th Assembly District, David I. Weprin, 89th Assembly District, Robert J. Castelli. And so is there a motion to approve the final certification?
I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
All right. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so the certifications have been approved, and as I noted, the commissioners have signed the certifications. So there being no other business for the Board of Canvassers, we'll now call to order the commissioners of the State Board of Elections. The first item of business is the minutes of February 18th, 2010. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. The next order of business are the unit updates. We'll start with the executive directors, Bob Brem and Todd Valentine.
This past period we've been working on a number of items, primarily associated with the implementation of the MOVE Act, completing review of various proposals. We did complete the application process to the Federal Election Assistance Commission, and the money from the 2010 requirement payment has been wire transferred to the state of New York, so we actually have the money. And during the past month, we did receive some positive budget news. A correction letter was sent out from the EAC that they miscalculated the amount of money that was available in New York State, so we picked up a little shy of $180,000 in additional funds, which will come in handy. And that was good. The other positive news was something we've been waiting to see since early November, mid-November, and that was the RFQ from the federal voting assistance people to try and move this program forward at the federal level. So it's out, and I think that's a positive sign. Another item that is something we're working on other than getting ready for our April conference was we received a request from the legislature in early May to visit and bring the voting equipment so that the legislators can view what our certified machines look like and how they'll operate. So we are working with staff to prepare to bring the machines to the legislature and work to coordinate with some of our area boards of elections to join us in setting up, what would look like a new election district or polling site. So, we'll bring some of the privacy booths, et cetera, that go with the voting machines. So that we're looking forward to doing early May, and we'll have more info on that as we get closer to that period of time, other than the items that we put in our report.
No, the only other thing we're waiting for is if there's any changes that develop out of the state budget process. I mean, so far there's been no negative impacts, but they're a long way from getting a state budget, so that always is a bit of a mystery this time of year.
And I understand that there are no federal funds for HAVA proposed for the next federal fiscal year.
There were no federal monies proposed in the executive budget, although we've heard some preliminary talks from some of the contacts that they're looking to make both a move appropriation for the state's use and perhaps a requirement payment. And one of the items that we had heard from people, and I know Anna, I mentioned it, and Todd and others, it would help us to try and get a handle from our county boards, at least, a ballpark figure, how much of the so-called shoebox money have they spent? Because I think there are a lot of expenditures that the counties have made that we're not at that point in our process that they can apply to get the money yet. We have to certify compliance with Title III before the counties can start to ask for reimbursement under the shoebox program. Both in person and in several emails, I've asked the EAC to give us a written piece of information that we could rely on as to when New York State can submit that we're in compliance with Title III, since the one thing we were holding out on is the voting systems. We haven't heard back from the EAC yet, but that will, if once we have Nassau County and New York City take possession of their equipment, the preliminary information from the EAC is we may very well be able to file that certificate that we're in compliance with Title III, and then the counties can start being reimbursed out of this federal program. And we all know that they need to use, they need the money. The counties laid the money out, and it's just sitting in an account.
Right, and it wasn't until this
it.
year that they could actually trigger that shoebox. It's still called shoebox because of the compliance issue.
So my reaction when I was asked, do we need more money, is yes, because a good amount of the money that's in the shoebox was already spent. It's not just sitting there waiting to be spent. It's just that we don't have a program in place yet to give the counties the money to draw it down. So hopefully, and there are only 19 other states that have certified that they're in compliance with Title III. So I believe we're all in that same category. Money has been laid out. We just aren't able to access it yet because we have to get through this step. But once we get to that step, the counties will submit their applications, and we'll be able to move them forward and actually give them their money under the program. And there will be an outstanding need that hopefully we can make a case to Congress to assist us in funding.
All right, well, thank you. We'll then move to legal. Kim Galvin.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, our written report seems to set forth just the general things that Paul and I have been doing in the unit since the last meeting, routine phone calls and a variety of other things. But there is one thing that I think it would be important to give the commissioners a more specific update on, and that is our communications with the Department of Justice and compliance with the timeline for the machine deployment. As you are aware, all of the voting systems throughout the state were due to be delivered by March 15th. All counties have received all the machines necessary for use in a fall primary this year, except for two, Nassau County and New York City. So really 6. But and in furtherance of getting a better handle on that, we've not only spoken with the Department of Justice and the Attorney General's office quite frequently, we have participated in a number of phone calls and communications with each of those counties to discern just exactly what the status of the situation is with regard to the machines and when they're going to accept them and when our testing will be completed. New York City's calls were very fruitful, I believe. We are in the process of Bob Warren is going to finalize talks with some of the key staff down in New York City to finalize a timeline for acceptance. They will be taking a big load of machines for Brooklyn, I believe, next week, and they have set forth a timeline for finalizing it now for deliveries on a scattered basis that will take us through the end of into May, and they're professing compliance, and they're working on their warehouse spaces, and everything seems to be moving along fine. We also had conference calls with Nassau County, and Nassau County presents an interesting twist of issues as well. They have severe, as from my understanding, they have severe warehouse storage areas. And they have another twist. Not only do they have the levers that they have to move, but they also have the Dominion ImageCast machine, the ballot marking devices that they're no longer using, that are taking up space. So they're in the process, and I haven't heard, I was out for medical reason, but I haven't heard that they've finalized the warehouse space issue yet to move the Dominion ImageCast to make room for the automarks. I think it's critical that it's made clear at this meeting that we told them and advised them as of last week, all of their machines, both sets, the BMDs and the scanners, are acceptance tested and ready for delivery to Nassau County. And they are all done, and we are simply awaiting a schedule from them to deliver. I'm hopeful that they will give us a schedule, not only for the auto marks, which they keep talking about, but also the scanner deliveries as well in the very near future, because I know the Department of Justice is very interested in when they will be accepting their machines. So I just thought it's critical that the board understand where we are with those two counties.
Okay, well, thank you. I noticed that there were two decisions, court decisions, that occurred since our last meeting that we were not directly involved in and didn't take a position on, but I think are worth mentioning.
The SUNY CUNY decision?
And then also the Dominion lawsuit. So why don't you just, either one of you, just review what the court decisions were in each
Well, I
of
got
those.
an opportunity to read the SUNY CUNY decision, and the long and the short of it is the Department of Justice was granted summary judgment by the United States District Court for the Northern District of New York, and they have been directed to add SUNY and CUNY Disability Services offices to the list of mandated NVRA offices in the state of New York. The procedural mechanism is the Department of Justice was given 10 days to submit a plan, and then the defendants were given 5 days to object, respond, etc. That's where it is.
So we're waiting to hear exactly what DOJ wants in
Yes.
order to have New York come into compliance.
Yes.
And it's really just a technical issue involving SUNY and CUNY and their junior colleges as well,
Yes.
on whether or not the Office for Disabled Student Services
Yes.
would
Should be a mandated NVRA office.
And the only difference by being a mandated office is that the office is then responsible for communicating voter registrations directly to the board, as opposed to handing it back to the voter and having the voter mail it to the board, right?
Yes,
I mean,
but
basically.
they have, at least on the main campus level, there's 64 SUNY campuses. On the 30 main campuses, not the community colleges, they've been voluntarily participating and they're included in the site. But the issue was the legal issues, like are they required and compelled? And the community colleges did not voluntarily participate.
Right.
So this will increase the scope of that, not by a large amount as far as we're concerned, but we stand ready, willing, and able to provide training materials, whatever they need.
Right, and it's John Conklin's unit that
Yep.
oversees this, and it's really it will be no major addition to our workload.
Yeah.
All right, and then the other lawsuit was the Dominion lawsuit? You want to?
Yeah, unless we received another decision on Dominion yesterday, did we? The one decision that we have received in that case, I think, from Judge McGrath was, as you are aware, Dominion sued basically New York City, saying that their choice of ES&S violated a variety of contractual provisions, procurement provisions, and we appeared before Judge McGrath in Supreme Court, and arguments were heard, and he issued a decision denying Dominion's request for a preliminary injunction to, in effect, stay the choice that they made, and which would in turn, I think, stay all of us from doing all of our work necessary to comply. He did not rule on the underlying substantive issue. However, the wording in his initial decision was quite firm, I think, in saying that, in my opinion, he didn't think much of Dominion's case, and we're waiting for the final decision on that.
All right.
The only thing that I would add is I have been in communication with the Corporation Council of the City of New York on the various DOJ pre-clearance issues for our new voting systems. And I had prepared a list for the board of IRMA having been pre-cleared, the 1997 amendment to IRMA having been pre-cleared, Part 6209 having been pre-cleared, 6210 having been pre-cleared, and the amendment on the undervote in 6209 as well having been pre-cleared. And I've shared all of that with the Corporation Counsel's office in New York City.
And based on that, the state board is current, right? That everything that we've
yes.
done has been pre-cleared.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much. We'll move to election operations. Anna Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Commissioner. We don't have but a couple issues to add to the written report that was provided in the packets. We indicated that questions were being, responses to questions for our asset management tracking system RFP were being prepared. Those were done, delivered to potential proposers. I believe we're looking at 5 proposers that meet our initial requirements for being in a position to respond. Our next step is to meet with Nysboe and OGS and our RFP review committee so that we understand the ground rules and the scoring procedures, et cetera. And we'll be doing that before the end of the month. We have reconvened training sessions at our acceptance testing site for both EMS and for the creation of test decks. We've had, I believe, 7 counties sign up for those training sessions, and several counties have already been in for their classes. We are working with Nysboe to prepare procedures. We're working with the Pilot Review Committee from the Election Commissioners Association and our own 2 cents in amending procedures that were already in place and in creating new ones to correspond to policies. We're going to be giving each county board at the conference 2 notebooks, 1 for each commissioner, and a CD in that so that they can reproduce it as they see fit at their county board. And then they will have a hard copy that they can use just as a quick resource, and they can make it available electronically to whomever they like on their own watch. We didn't want to distribute it and interfere with the commissioner's intentions as to how they intended to distribute it. We also indicated that we had several counties that had not yet purchased the election management system for their voting systems. I think Joe and I tried to be as diligent as we could. Our powers of persuasion kind of eluded us in 4 out of the 5. We're rather happy that Washington County saw the light and did place their order before Friday's deadline. We have remaining Warren County, Hamilton County, Columbia County, and Westchester County. We spoke with Hamilton County this morning. They're under particular hardship because they truly ran out of HAVA money before it was even populated into their spreadsheet. They had very little to work with in the first instance, and even to buy enough scanners to run elections in their county, had to use county funds to do so. So we're We encourage them to reach out to the vendor and see what sort of accommodation they might be able to come to because of their size and their unique circumstances. The other 3 counties are efforting this. I guess my concern would be, and I would speak for myself, that unless they get this EMS and learn how to use it, their ability to be able to comply with the requirements that prohibit a vendor from doing programming are going to be diminished. We're approaching April. In July, we encourage them to start populating their EMS system with candidates that are appearing on the ballot that aren't involved in litigation. So to the extent that this board can direct us, we're happy to work more diligently with those 4 boards. We're happy to order EMS for them, work something out with them. I'm not quite sure where we're headed here.
Let's get very specific. Your unit sent official notices to each of these 5 counties last week saying that unless they ordered the EMS system by last Friday, that the state was going to do it for them. And
Yeah.
you said 1 county, Washington County, complied, so that there are 4 counties now that are out of compliance. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, but I think
That's not the full picture.
many of them have offered explanation. I don't think the other.
Right, well, that's what I'm getting,
It's true that they haven't
getting to.
purchased the
When we
unit.
tell somebody that unless you do something by this deadline, we're going to do X, then it seems to me that we should do X, that there should not be idle threats. So what I'd like to address is specifically each of those 4 counties' requests for extensions, because I think that's what you haven't used the magic words, that each of those 4 counties has asked for an extension, and to tell us what's happening with each of those 4 counties so that we can be assured that they are going to get into compliance within a reasonable period of time, right? Isn't that the issue?
Yeah.
Because we can't just,
It's not as simple as just purchasing the EMS. That's what you see when we go through the counties.
right, so can
Well, I
we
would disagree, but that's
take
okay.
a minute? Well,
I can tell you that in Columbia County, for some reason, Columbia County is navigating these purchase orders through their local procurement offices. They are purchasing the EMS directly from the state contract with HAVA funds that are available to them. Why they're using local procurement offices to issue these purchase orders eludes me. And we have tried to have that conversation with them to no avail.
but
In any
they're
event-
actually doing it.
In any event, they are doing it. They indicate that the next opportunity they're going to have for any approval is April 14th.
Well, is that timely, so that they will be able to get the system and train on it in a timely fashion?
I would, yes.
Just to the left side.
All right, we have 3 more to go. Westchester is the largest.
Westchester has no warehouse.
What has that got to do with the EMS system?
I have struggled with that. I am not sure why purchasing the EMS and setting up a workstation at the Board of Elections that would enable them to become familiar with the EMS, to be trained on it, and then migrate that system over to their facility when indeed that facility becomes available to them would be a better use of their time than simply waiting for this facility to become available.
So what is
troubled by
Westchester's
that.
specific proposal?
They have
on
no
how they are
specific
going to achieve
proposal other
this?
than they're working on their warehouse issue. Now, one of the commissioners has been out of the office and was not there for us to have a conference call. Joe and I have tried to do these calls with both of us on the line and both commissioners. So we can effort that call with Westchester and perhaps propose to them that they find a way to have a workstation set up at the county board so that this can happen. They're a large county, a monster number of ballot styles that have to be accommodated. There's just an awful lot of work to do to learn this system and then apply it and not be able to do it until you get this building that you think this magic is going to happen in.
Now is this more or less significant than the inability to take delivery of the machines?
Well, that's the problem
Equally.
with Westchester is there's no they have a space and security issue. While you can purchase the software, it can't just be loaded on any computer. It has to be on a standalone system and segregated out, which is what, and other counties are doing this as well. They have to separate that out, and in order to accommodate that, their office space is very tight, I understand. So they wanted the desire to do, instead of a partial migration to a closet where you could put an isolated system, to set the system up where it intentionally to do the work. But like other counties, they're running into some roadblocks into getting that space that they need for on the county side. So while we could order the software for them, that would fine. I'm not sure that they'd have anywhere to put it when they got it.
To put software? I mean, we're talking about a computer station.
But it has to be
it
can't just be any type of computer station. It has to be basically a stripped down, isolated computer model.
Right.
And
we're
realistically,
talking about a couple of square feet.
Realistically, when we order it, I think, and Anna can correct me if I'm wrong, but
I could find a space in the commissioner's office to put that computer and the machine.
but isn't the real issue though not just to have the software, but to actually train people to use it? Yeah. So I mean, perhaps along the way we should be asking for training schedules too. Just throwing that in there.
And where they fit into the current training.
That again is something that if you wait to install this and you don't, you're further on the chain of having it installed and even further on the chain for being trained. And now we're butting up against petition week, and that is going to be a nightmare to me.
Well, and what I'm asking, where I'm going with this is, does the state need to get involved to make sure that Westchester is going to get on the timetable so that they will be able to implement the switch over to the new voting system in time for the September primary?
Looks like it's a worry.
Well, I think we are running out of time. But like I said, the fact that we'll order it doesn't make it usable.
Well, but
I don't know how we could get involved more directly with understanding the training of it and the actual development of the staff that's required to use. And back to your question, if you don't have the machines, you don't really need the EMS.
Well,
so I don't know.
But see, are we comfortable that there is a plan in place in Westchester?
We could use a better plan.
And do we need to start focusing more of our staff energy into making sure that Westchester is in compliance?
Well, if I guess in my mind I was thinking, and I haven't had a chance to really speak to Bob Warren about it, but if that is their concern, then perhaps we could speak to the vendor about, because I think if we're ordering the EMS, we're ordering the workstations and everything. I'm not naive enough to think we give you software and then walk away. We clearly intended in putting this in our unit report to say that we would order whatever it takes to use the system. My thought in Westchester was that they could put the EMS on laptops and learn how to use the EMS, get scheduled for training, and then have the EMS loaded permanently in their facility once that facility is available and the truly dedicated workstations were set up. The laptops could be put in a closet with 2 locks on it, which we know they have for ballot purposes, etc.
Is there a plan to get a facility? Or are they having problems with the county government where we need to get involved to make sure that this actually happens and that everyone in the county government is pulling together to acclish this?
The county is working on it. Their language is that the warehouse where the system will be stored,
excuse me.
Westchester commissioners, the warehouse where the system will be stored is not yet completed, and at this time there are no available alternate storage facilities. So this speaks to why they haven't taken delivery of the balance of the scanners.
When is it going to be completed?
They have no date proposed in that email.
Well, see, it seems to me we need to follow up on this in order to make sure that all the pieces are going to come together.
I think that perhaps maybe we should, I think it's very good that we figure out which county's issues are and maybe, by the next board meeting, the staff, I can work with operations or whatever, and we can get the whole plans in place for some of these counties that are really do have logistical complications that they're attempting to work through, and maybe get the deadlines and see when the order is going to be placed, when the training will be, the follow-up, and give them the opportunity now that they see we're...
Precisely, and if they're having trouble with their county governments, then
they
that's appropriate for us to get involved in that.
And we have in the past when issues
I think
like
we need more
more details from them. We absolutely know
Yes.
that. Do they have a
For some of them,
timetable?
yes.
What are they going to do on that timetable?
Mhm.
And if they are having problems,
And
you
clearly, I
know,
don't
see
like
how
to
we
make
could
work.
help them with that.
Clearly, I don't like to make work, particularly for units that I'm not in, but it may also behoove us to figure out the counties that have ordered it, have they trained on it, and are they using it, as opposed to it's just sitting in a drawer, so they've missed our scope, but...
I mean, is this just an
That's a
excuse?
good point. All right, now there was, we've talked about Columbia, Westchester, Hamilton. What's the last
I
one?
can have Joe brief you on Warren because I did not speak with them.
They've got, I would say, pretty much
Similar
the same issues as Westchester County, but I would say they're moving in the right direction. in
Excuse
terms
me, Joe, could you speak up a little?
of- Sorry about
I
that.
can't hear you, yeah.
I would say that they have pretty much the same issues as Westchester County, but they are moving in the right direction. And I'm sure with some further communications, we could put together a bit of a better timetable. But they're moving in the right direction.
They are moving in the right direction. Are they having problem finding a place to, you know, storage?
I think it's fair to say there were some issues that they needed to work out with their IT department. But again, I can't see that with a little work and a little help, it won't all come together.
Because it's getting, you know, the clock is ticking and the days are rushing by. Before you know it, it's going to be September. You know?
Something, we just need to get a firmer schedule on when they.
Right, I think so too.
I think the
Todd,
issue
yeah.
is where the purchase of the hardware, not to purchase the hardware, but what's the best way to purchase the hardware in their county?
Yes.
Either
Yeah.
directly from the vendor or independently.
Right.
In order to put the software on. So I think that's what they're trying to work out.
Okay.
I think they also have some warehouse issues that they're long-term.
All right, well, I think this discussion was helpful. And you know, it just highlights that we have to make sure that all 58 jurisdictions are on track to implement this in time for September.
I do, I do echo and the sentiments that I think that, you know, Hamilton County is in a distinctly different position with the fact of their resources and it's not just that they don't want to do it, they really can't get the money to.
Yeah, but they have to deal with it.
Well, I understand that, but
I
I
mean,
think,
it's not a choice. The county, and see, that's one where we may need to
Right, right. Just order it,
tell the
take the-
or tell the county government that that they must do this.
But when they ordered their original voting machines, their initial order to buy 11 machines spent more money than
Right.
we had available at the time, and the county government did write the check for that county amount that they needed to make whole. Since then, we've received additional HAVA dollars that we've made available through the apportionment, and I think they have a balance now, maybe half of what they
Right.
need. There may be other HAVA dollars that may come to them through the pipeline of money that we currently have. If we don't spend the whole $6 million that's currently in the aid to localities on other HAVA-related items, some of that money would be available to that county. If the Congress really does appropriate money for a move, we haven't spent it, we could use that money to replace the aid to locality money
Well,
this year. So there may be other monies.
But these are all contingencies where they have to do it now, and they
Well, if they
also
order
need to
now-
deal with the plan, because I know that the two commissioners, who are the only staff that, for that board, are saying that they still want to have somebody else take responsibility for programming the ballots, and they really need to either find a county that's willing to do that for them, or we could discuss whether we would do it for them.
Well, we spoke to them about that this morning. They do, you know, even though they're at wit's end trying to resolve this, they do have their hearts in the right place, and they are taking it up with the vendor. Before we came into this meeting, we saw an email from the board to the vendor asking for a call as soon as possible so that they could propose some of the things that Joe and I, bless him, spoke to them about this morning. So maybe by the end of the day we'll have a little more information on whether that can happen. And we can certainly effort with the other counties getting more specific information from them to either share with you by email, and if it becomes something more dire, we can have conversations with Todd and Bob here. Otherwise, we can bring this to you at the next board meeting, and if they have not yet been resolved, the board can direct us further at that time.
All right. Now, is there anything else you wanted to add for the election operations?
No, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Anna. So we'll turn to John Conklin for public information.
Good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me, my voice is a little under the weather today.
Yeah, I can hear it.
I don't really have much to add to the written report other than to discuss the extension contracts for HAVA money are almost entirely complete, but we have 4 counties that haven't sent their contracts in. Unfortunately, I'm going to name them. I know that's a breach of protocol, but we need to make sure that they're aware that they need to send that stuff to us. It's Clinton, Cortland, Erie, and St. Lawrence counties. And this is to extend their HAVA funds beyond the end of this month. So they need to get those contracts into us. Other than that, if anybody has any questions about the written report.
Is there a deadline on that? Pardon me.
Well, the deadline we imposed is essentially passed. The contract needs to be in place by the 31st of March. So they need to get it to us as soon as possible.
Have you called them personally on the phone?
The unit has talked to them. I have not. I'd be happy to do that today.
Yeah, I'm just thinking sometimes that helps, you know.
Sure.
Talking to people directly, saying, you know, remind them March 31st is the deadline. You know, oh, I didn't even know that. I'm so busy with everything else. Sometimes it can help.
All right, well, thank you, John. Next is campaign finance, Elizabeth Hogan.
Thank you, Commissioner. The written report that I submitted to the commissioners for the packet basically outlines the work that's being done by each of the units. Additionally, outside of campaign finance, a bit and into enforcement, I notified you that the lawsuit for the January periodic has gone to judgment. We're waiting for it to be signed. There were 486 treasurers and candidates on the judgment. Pretty much everything else that's on there is what we're doing. Does anyone have any questions about the written report?
No, that's good. Then we'll move to George Stanton for information technology.
Thank you. As commissioners can see, I get quite an elaborate report that I've given you in writing. I get these monthly reports from my staff every month, going back to January 2000. And I just decided to include the report so that if you have any questions, you can ask me. As far as anything remarkable that's going on right now in IT, there isn't much of anything. We've made good progress on the new electronic filing system software. We're going to be showing that to Bill and Elizabeth, I guess, later this week, if I remember right.
Yes.
I think we're making good progress on that. When it'll be available to actually go out, we don't know, because there's unknown things as far as extra filings that the legislature might send down the pipe here, and we sort of have in a wait and see mode on a lot of that stuff right now. But I think we've made good progress. So if you got any questions about...
No news from information technology is always good news.
Yeah, it's kind of like being a car mechanic. We do a lot of oil changes, tire rotations, and all that. And when something big comes in, it's not good.
All right, thank you, George. All right, so old business, I assume we've already had the update on the MOVE implementation?
I think the only other, the draft waiver application, I put it for just information purposes. It would be my hope to get this out shortly. We were waiting for a formal instruction from the FVAP office. That's not forthcoming. So we did the best we could informally to put this together, And I think it's at that point where at least we have the parameters of what we would like to do. That may change depending on what the federal voting assistance program itself does, but I think we need to move and get it in. So my hope would be to get it out before the end of this week.
Great.
As a starting point, and I just put it in
And
there.
we do have draft legislation that's circulating, and we are working on contracting with a vendor who will be able to help us meet the online application and the ability to send a ballot online if a military voter requests it. All right, great.
Is moving.
The next item on old business was a legislative update.
I think this is actually, this has moved to 3 prongs, I think, since yesterday. So I'm going to need help. Again, I was out yesterday for medical reasons, but there's the draft legislation on move, that's one thing. There's the new proposal by the state board for your consideration that was in your packets. And then there is also Paul or Bob or Anna or someone can help me, because there was amendments made to one of our old proposals where we had, 2 of our old proposals where we had seemingly switched sections of law inadvertently and erroneously that we needed to correct. And then there's a position on a piece of legislation that's before the governor. So I don't know what order or what questions.
Well, let's start with the bill before the governor. Can either of you tell us which bill is?
4242.
And
Senate.
and what does the bill do?
It eliminates the different certification of enrollment dates that occur in every 4th year in a presidential primary, which is now more or less meaningless.
And this was not part of our board package, but I think
Historically it has.
it was, right. So the point here is that we want the commissioners to endorse the bill and recommend
So
that
we
the
can
governor
file
sign
and
the
we're in
bill.
support of the bill.
All right, so those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now, you had 2 bills you wanted to add to the legislative packet of the commissioners, was that?
The new one, too.
So no, it's-
Those are the new ones.
Right. And those are in our package under tab 4.
Yes,
And-
should be.
That relate to the,
And one is the proposal for amending 9102 and 9108
yeah.
to correct technical issues that arise from the use of paper ballots.
Yeah.
And then the second bill,
Well, 9102 is the first.
are there separate bills?
9108 is a separate bill, so that would be the
Okay,
second.
all right, all right.
Got it.
but 9102 references 9108, so they're.
All right.
Yeah.
So the motion before us is to add these to our legislative packet and ask the legislature to enact them. Those in favor say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that's approved. Now, was there a third thing that you needed action on?
Well, I think because you had, the board had voted on the original bills, I think perhaps the board should vote on just the correct, I don't
Right,
even know
so
if you need.
specifically, which bill are we correcting our proposal?
10 and 12.
This is 10 of 2010 and
Yeah.
12 of 2010.
Right.
All
They're
right.
technical cleanups, that's all they
Right.
are.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, so the motion is to modify our request on bills 10 and 12 of the State Board package. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so that's done.
Just everything.
All right, so I think that covers the legislative update issues. All right. And we are continuing to discuss the draft of the move bill, and we may add that to our package, or we'll just sign off on what's being negotiated in the legislature. All right, next is the resolution to allocate funds for NYSTEC non-security tasks.
Number 4.
So, Anna, do you want to just briefly explain what the non-security tasks are that NYSTEC is taking on?
These are all of the procedural amendments, the creation of policies and corresponding procedures and forms, the project management tasks, the generic vendor conference calls that aren't specifically vendor related, everything outside of the security and source code reviews, et cetera, are part of this generic fund. And we do have contract room to continue the project. We just didn't have contract money to pay the next invoice.
And these are available HAVA funds?
Yes.
That we have and don't really change our internal budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
These are the interlocality funds that the legislature set aside if we needed them. I require you to vote to transfer them from interlocalities to state ops and then to authorize us to spend the money.
Okay.
So this is the first time we are taking any of the $6 million.
All right, so those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's adopted. So I think that all that remains on the agenda is the executive session, and before we do that, we should discuss our next date. Unless, does anybody want to add anything to the agenda?
No, I think
All
we
right.
did everything.
So, the last I heard was that you wanted it to be you wanted it 3 weeks rather than 4 weeks?
Well, what is today?
23rd.
23rd of March. April.
I would like April 21.
That would probably work best. I mean, that would be the longest. I haven't been able to confirm with Commissioner Peterson what would be available, but it would seem to me the longer would be better for him.
Isn't that a conference?
Our conference is the following week.
Is the following week? Oh, okay.
And that would actually work out a little better for us on the 21st because the week before is when we intend to assemble all the conference information because some of that we're having done
day of the week is
outsourced.
That's a Wednesday.
I understand. I understand.
And I'll call Commissioner Peterson.
All right, and
if there's any change.
And if we do need to change it, I would say, we could always go into the conference date.
I would go into the conference.
Like the day
we can
before,
show that last night.
either right before or right after the conference.
It's hard because we actually do programming early on the 19th, or excuse me, the
Well, I do it at the
26th,
end
which were the
because
first day.
it gives Commissioner
Well-
Peterson a few more, another week,
All right, well,
Right.
so April 21st right now.
Yeah, okay.
All right, and so now the motion is to go into executive session to discuss enforcement matters and personnel matters. And it's possible we may come back to actually take a vote at the end of this, but I don't know that it's necessary for.
We'll either vote on
So-
the enforcement matters, which nobody
Right.
really knows what they are.
So we may come back for those who technically want to observe,
I
but
think technically we should.
no, we need to discuss. So those in favor of going into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're in executive session. order to take up the enforcement matters that are listed on the agenda, CMP 10-12, 10-11, 10-10, 10-9, 10-5, 09-10, 08-61, 10-21, 10-16, 10-4, 09-142, and SC 0906/CMP 08-69. Now, we made a few revisions in the reports in the executive session, and the motion now is to approve all of these reports as amended.
So moved.
Yes.
Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?